Greetings. Today's talk focuses on that the FBI probe of Tesla has expanded. So our show topic today is Elon Musk, jail time related to this expanded FBI probe or not. We also take a look at what's going on with the Tesla stock, and hopefully you guys can scope out some vehicles coming in and out of the service center here in Tysons Corner, Virginia. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. If you're a repeat visitor, welcome back. Thank those of you who are helping out on Patreon. We could definitely use help there for those who are not involved in that way. Also, please note that your like and your subscriptions and your comments influence how well the channel does, so we'd appreciate your support in that regard as well. We're on Tesla Fan Insight, both on Facebook, where we put photos in. You'll see a bunch of photos from today, for example, behind us. And please note that if you watch us on Tesla Fan Insight, please do so on YouTube. We have some folks stealing material and posting them to their channels, and we'd appreciate if you not, work with them. Just let's keep it on Tesla Fan Insight on YouTube for now. So I chose today, usually once a month we do a show from the service facility. I've chosen to sort of do the parking lot behind the service area, and as usual I'll be posting photos of all the cars here at the service facility that we have for today, the 28th of October 2018. Surprisingly, the place is full of cars, which is atypical. Usually there are a lot of deliveries that go on between Friday, Saturday, and now Sunday. So when the Model 3 deliveries just started, they'd usually be picked clean by now. So I'm a little surprised to see that there are actually a lot of vehicles both behind me and on the other sides of the building that are being stored. The next thing I'd like to sort of cover with you is the fact that a piece of news sort of dropped. First of all, the Wall Street Journal was the entity to break the news that the FBI has expanded their probe of Tesla. Now, when this original probe discussion came up a month ago, the suggestion was both the SEC as well as the FBI were working in the same way in probing Tesla regarding the buyout discussion that Elon was having. It turns out that Tesla settled the SEC discussion, or SEC inquiry, and then now, once that was settled, I thought the criminal probe would be over. The answer to that is that no, the probe was not over, because the FBI probe related to Elon Musk's comments in I believe late 2017, when he indicated that Tesla would soon start producing 5,000 Model 3s a week. And so the documents requested by the FBI relate to what were the internal production numbers that Elon was looking at when he made this comment about Model 3 production about to begin at the 5,000 level. And as we all know, the real numbers that were being produced at the time were way lower than that, if not in the hundreds. And so I believe once you look at what Elon said and the documents they turned over to FBI, based on the paper documentation, they've got him dead to rights. So one of the things that we should all be aware of is in the United States, and I assume in Europe as well, we have something called corporate governance rules. So I actually have a mentor of mine who is a world-class attorney, and she was actually a senior executive at a major corporation that's Europe-based but huge US operations. And she actually quit her job, and the reason she quit was that new rules about 5 years ago came in relative to corporate governance. What the new rules from the SEC/government is that if there are activities going on within your company and you didn't know about them and properly deal with them to stop them, then not only could there be civil penalties in terms of you having to pay, but there also could be criminal penalties, which mean you get to go to jail based on behavior or misstatements that you should have stopped as one of the leaders of that company. In the case of the mentor that I have, the company she was working in had US operations as well as operations throughout Latin America. So one of her methods, so basically, if she didn't want to travel to all the locations that the company was operating in and make sure there was no activity that was illegal going on, if she wasn't willing to do that, there's the potential that something could have been going on that was illegal, and her not properly managing that illegality could have resulted in her going to jail. So as a result, she chose to retire versus having to deal with the rules, the new corporate governance rules that include jail time related to misbehavior by members of your organization. So let's fast forward then. Bottom line is that in the case of Tesla, Elon Musk was the person involved in misstatements that were material, and there's documentation to confirm that those were statements that were not true. It's my belief that, the process for this is initially there's an FBI investigation. If the findings are sufficient for a criminal probe, those are handed over to the rest of the Justice Department, at which point they would press charges over there. Both the company and Tesla will be found liable in this case because when I say Tesla, both the company and Elon will be found liable if they lose, and now you end up in an elongated legal process related to addressing the issues that are on the table. So what is interesting to me is that there's a question mark, which is, could Elon go to jail? And the answer is yes, he could. The next question is, will he go to jail? And my argument is that Elon can afford really expensive attorneys, so can Tesla. So just like we saw the SEC settle, despite the fact that they have him dead to rights, I believe it's going to be a slap on the wrist because his attorneys are just too good and he's got too much money, but it is possible that he could end up with some jail time. Now, the next question is this good or bad news for Tesla? In my assessment, the news is actually really good for Tesla, but kind of bad news for Elon. As you know, Elon really likes shooting from the hip all the time and not reading and noting what all the corporate governance rules are. So if in fact they do have a situation where this moves down the line into the criminal probe zone, it's already kind of affected the stock price a little bit, but the path to anything being done on this is 2 to 3 years away. And, if in fact it went into the Justice Department, there's a whole bunch of actions that a wealthy person or company can take to elongate the process of this being addressed. The next thing that comes to mind with this whole thing is that I actually think that this probe and its further impact on Elon is actually really good. The reason I think it's good is twofold. First of all, Elon likes to shoot from the hip a great deal. And the fact of the matter is it's a non-fit to make off-the-cuff comments that potentially move the stock price dramatically. And he sort of enjoys the process of doing that in his battle with the hedge funds. The second issue is that if Elon Musk is recognizing that he potentially goes to jail and he loses control of the company, I believe that this leads us down the path of Elon actually behaving a lot more like most CEOs do, which is to make cautious public statements. And all those cautious public statements are very carefully designed to fit what the rules are for corporate governance. So I believe that this whole deal will result in Elon now having to operate like a real CEO rather than sort of a cowboy shooting from the hip. And I think this is great news. I also think that so bottom line is that this is kind of bad news for Tesla, but I think for Elon, but I think it's great news for Tesla because it leads us down the path of an FBI probe introducing criminality and potentially jail time to really force better behavior from Elon, and frankly, bring in a more professional management style coming out of the CEO's office and even the chairman's office. So bottom line is that in general, you'll see that the stock price is temporarily affected by what's going on, but I think that the trends are all very positive for the company and the stock price, and I look forward to the company returning to those going forwards. The next thing that I wanted to review in general is kind of where we are in the movement of the stock. Anytime a company announces earnings, the hedge funds can respond to those earnings announcements instantly, whereas it can take multiple days for the large institutional money managers that have 55 to 60% of the stock in the market to respond. So in this case currently, I'm forecasting that if the market doesn't drop 2,000 or 3,000 points, Tesla could easily continue to rise here. Could easily continue to rise here another 5 to 10% in the short term. And then as we move into noting, what the reservations lists in Europe are like, etc., we could see a really nice bump of Tesla stock into the late 300s, early $400 over the next 6 to 8 weeks. So that's sort of our forecast of what's going to occur. I have to say I'm really impressed, and if you'll check the stock price for last week, while the market was down 300 points, Tesla's stock price was up $15 over 330 and rising against a down market is very impressive. So our next show is really designed to focus on taking a more intense look at the stock price, where it's headed and why, and we look forward to diving into that. Now, Richard and others, I wanted to thank you for the comments you shared. Clearly, this is affecting people looking out to see if this is severe. Also wanted to note that there's an interesting phenomenon going on, which is the Wall Street Journal broke the story here. As usual, the Wall Street Journal will grudgingly give Tesla due when something great happens, but they're all over any story that's negative, which is the case here as well. So well done, Wall Street Journal, on heavily promoting a negative story which is already out there as a way to slow the rise of the stock price. This kind of makes me wonder whether or not the Wall Street Journal isn't being paid by some of their hedge fund friends to try in any way, an underhanded method possible, to slow the growth of Tesla's stock price on strong earnings news and a real change in the future of the company, driven by those earnings numbers. So hats off to the Wall Street Journal. You guys have been consistently negative on Tesla, and the reintroduction of this story with no public, very large news to go with it, I think has been an excellent move, and in terms of slowing the stock's growth. Great question, Axis, on what's going on with new products and where are we going. We have a show coming up 2 shows from now where we're really going to pick through what the numbers are. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but Tesla was not scheduled to have a full 35 kilowatt hours of batteries available until 1.5 years from now. The current statement is that they're going to have that complement of battery by the end of this year, and I believe that what that lends itself to is 10,000 battery packs a week coming out. And as we're moving forward to that number, we now have enough battery packs to supply Europe and America with Model 3s, and we can start on the process of delivering other cars. So for the next year, the only 2 vehicles that are going to be coming out are the Model 3 in large numbers into Europe and Asia, as well as the move to the semi-truck, and then we go from there. Great question on the price of the Tesla batteries from Panasonic. In the range of 10,000 is the number we're at right now. You know, I think it's a good question in terms of what's being charged. The cost is somewhere around 10K per battery pack for the Model 3 is the general number for the basic. Obviously, you know, maybe 40-50% more of that if we have two. I guess we're going to do dual motors, which doesn't affect the number of the amount of batteries, but you know, you get my general drift on that. Thanks for the question regarding what's happening with the ramp for production of the new vehicles. They've leased the facilities and are starting to equip it. They're currently hiring staff to be ready to produce trucks as we get into next year, as well as the new Roadster. Excellent question on how much money are they burning on that right now. Stuff like that is going to be baked into G&A in the balance sheet, and it's something that I don't know the exact number of, but they are spending on it, and it is a losing proposition because there's nothing coming out of that facility right now, production of new vehicles, either trucks or car-wise. I kind of feel like those numbers are somewhat of a no big deal because of the size of the deposits that are required for both the truck and for the new Roadster. So yeah, it's costing money, but I'd have to say I'm going to put it in that no big deal, nothing to worry about at this point, because those deposits are sort of sopping up those, like buttermilk, the losses that are associated with that expanded expected production. At any rate, we're sort of at the end of our show today. Just a reminder, don't forget 20 leg lifts, both legs with a 5-pound weight to help strengthen your quad muscles. No eating 2 hours before going to bed, preferably 4 hours. Also, you know, some fish oil, omega-3 would be a good idea to consider. And, you know, maybe a few half-hour a week walks would not be a bad move from the health standpoint. At any rate, I want to thank you for all your questions as well as your viewership. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. I'm going to take you out with a view of the rear of the service facility here on my way out. I wanted to, again, thank you and remind you, please like and subscribe. Any and all questions would be appreciated. Post. We can also use some support on Patreon if you would. And again, thanks again for joining us. Tschüss, German, au revoir, French, Lahithroot, Hebrew, Choda Hafez, Farsi, farewell, Dutch. In Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good man. And have a great day. Bye for now.